Originally created for the Game Boy Advance, the first Mario & Luigi game could be considered the true sequel to the very first Super Mario RPG on SNES. It came out after the popular Paper Mario on N64, but it was Mario & Luigi that brought back multiple original Mario RPG developers. Compared to Paper Mario, Mario & Luigi created a series that was even zanier and more over the top with its humor. In gameplay, it introduced the unique element of controlling both iconic brothers simultaneously, both in turn-based battles and during puzzle solving. Plus, even more than in Paper Mario, the action segments of combat incorporated Mario's platforming routes through skill-based QTEs. After the responsible studio Alpha Dream was dissolved, some feared the end for this particular spin-off, but surprisingly enough, after a long hiatus, a new team took over to create Mario & Luigi Brothership. And ultimately, this gave the series a needed breath of fresh air. The core gameplay loop and the series' unique exploration and combat design are intact, but Brothership also returns to the basics of Super Mario RPG to update the formula. Whether by making standard attacks more dynamic or by streamlining exploration controls. Since prior games took the concept of controlling both protagonists at the same time literally, Luigi could get easily stuck if you didn't time both jumps correctly. But since this wasn't a platformer, it created more of an annoyance than a test of skill. In Brothership, it's not possible to lose Luigi anymore, and instead you can send him out to do chores like a lemming. Battles still rely heavily on platforming and active timing, but the sequel slightly changes how leveling up works, making for a different and more dynamic way of combining extra attacks, stat bonuses, as well as buffs and debuffs. More similar to Paper Mario, where the underlying systems are easy to navigate but also provide a surprising amount of tactics, which is needed because maybe it's my age, but some of these boss patterns are a little tough if you don't react quickly enough to the action elements. Instead of a large overworld, Brothership features distinct islands which are essentially different levels with one big goal at the end after exploring either a dungeon or a big puzzle section or a city. This structure is reminiscent of the first Mario RPG, which was also divided into different stage-like locations. The world might not feel as coherent as in prior games, but the concept allows for a variety of backdrops, from jungles and mountains to amusement parks and even a little mystery adventure like in Paper Mario. While each stage is full of little interaction points and gameplay gimmicks, channeling Mario's platforming roots. A much needed improvement was the loosening of handholding. It's not exactly a hardcore RPG, and while tutorials appear even late in the game, they're far less intrusive. The prior development team had the bad habit of making longer and longer mandatory practice sessions for the most simple mechanics, including the act of walking around. Whereas Brothership has tutorial boxes which can be quickly skipped. Not to mention that some Mario and Luigi games, such as Dream Team, wouldn't have a single puzzle left that the computer wouldn't explain to you in detail. Brothership is still a kid-friendly game, but it lets you off the hook faster during puzzle solving and exploration, making these elements more rewarding. But this return to old virtues of Mario's RPG origins and rethinking prior games isn't without its flaws, or rather disappointments. When it comes to writing, it's probably among the weakest and least memorable RPGs in the Mario franchise. It was nice to see a new cast of characters and a new set of locations, after Nintendo put those on hold for over a decade, but the writing struggles to keep up with the classics. Old Mario and Luigi in particular had some of the zaniest humor in the series, with many quick-witted punchlines and extremely eccentric characters. Brothership not only returns to the more fragmented storytelling style of the first Mario RPG, but also adopts a more quote-unquote grounded tone. It's a comedic game, but the comedy feels safe and not very inventive. Still good enough for the target audience, because it's not bad per se, but the best Mario RPGs always had genuine laugh-out-loud moments for players of all kinds, which are rare in Brothership. Mario and Luigi before this game never shied away from poking fun at Nintendo's characters, while here their characterization is rather mild. There's a focus on physical comedy through the animation work, but the dialogue isn't on the same level anymore. For example, Bowser as the protagonist in Mario and Luigi 3 was one of the most surprisingly memorable portrayals of a Mario character, whereas no one in Brothership really stands out. Not to mention that side characters in the past came with very distinct over-the-top personalities and were presented with these caricature-like appearances. In Brothership it all feels much tamer. Practically no new characters presented in a similarly over-the-top way. Again, it's not boring, but also not particularly engaging. Often the game even suffers from long-winded exposition dumps that simply aren't interesting. The game aims to be whimsical and adventurous like Paper Mario 2, but that also falls short compared to the sharper writing of its predecessors. Besides that, I didn't really understand this concept of mixing nature with electronics. And because the writing isn't that interesting, while the game is bigger than many of the prior iterations with quite a bit of backtracking, Brothership also feels too long. All in all, you've got a game that fine-tunes an old formula to make it engaging again, under the premise of abandoning some bad habits of old, like the ever-growing hand-holding. Brothership provides a compelling gameplay loop which makes these new combat and exploration scenarios interesting to interact with. But there's also the feeling that something is missing to make it a true classic. As crazy as it might sound, it's the storytelling that held classics like Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door and Bowser's Inside Story together and elevated them, while Brothership just isn't quite there.